Lot 98 is Roman Vishniak's portfolio entitled A Vanished World, which contains 12 signed photographs. Roman Vishniak was a Russian-American photographer. He was also a biologist, a linguist, and a philosopher, something of a polymath. And when he realized that Eastern European Jewry was in jeopardy, he decided to go to Poland, go to Lithuania, to Russia, to Czechoslovakia, and chronicle what he characterized as a vanishing world. And again, that sense of urgency of a culture that is disappearing and that someone recognizes is disappearing and they want to record before it's too late. What is absolutely extraordinary about how he went about this is because of the nature of his subjects, the Orthodox Jews were not open to having their photographs taken, nor were, for example, the Germans, when they were occupying these areas, open to having a photographer make pictures of the ghettos and shtetls and the way of life that was being encroached upon. So what Vishniak did in a very creative way was to hide his camera, whether it was under his jacket or in a handkerchief, and essentially making spy photos. The image that's reproduced in our catalog is particularly poignant because in recounting the experiences of the people he met, he talks about this young girl. The title of this picture is The Flowers of My Youth, and how she was confined to her bedroom, and her father, in an effort to give her a sort of spring-like, beautiful environment, drew these pictures on the wall beside her bed. The expression on her face and the kind of fearfulness that we see, I don't think is accidental. And some of the other images that Vishniak made, they're essentially street scenes, photographing people as they're going about their daily business. But this picture of the young child really captures something of the kind of transition and fear and change going on in Eastern Europe that unfortunately not many people recognized. Lot 153 is Ansel Adams's Moonrise Hernandez. Ansel Adamss is linked with the American landscape tradition. As a young man in the 1920s, he and his family set out for Yosemite. He loved the natural landscape. He was a musician who was transitioning to photography and really understood that the land was in danger, that the beauty, the enchantment, the sublimity of the natural landscape was something that was in jeopardy. And early on in the 1950s, 1960s, he was actually the spokesperson for the Sierra Club and an early environmentalist. What's interesting about this image is that it has a currency unlike any other photograph ever made. Typically, in any market, we're looking at the law of supply and demand, and obviously scarcity will generally dictate a higher value in the marketplace. But Ansel Adamss, knowing that this image was a kind of Esperanto-like photograph and that it appealed to collectors and aficionados at all levels, whether you were a college kid looking for some poster art for your dorm room or a photographer looking to find the finest craftsmanship associated with photographic printmaking, this was the image. And so during his lifetime, Adamss made about 1,500 examples of this photograph. Some are large, some are small, some are vintage, some are period, some are modern. This photograph is a modern print in a 16 by 20 inch format. And the fact that when it is offered at auction or in a retail environment, it continues to find a new generation of buyers speaks to its universality. Lot 219 is Ruth Orkin's series of images, The Card Players from the Family of Man. Ruth Orkin was a New York-based photographer who was born on the West Coast, decided she wanted to take up photography, and initially had a career doing nightclub photography and photographs of babies, portraits of young children. Like many photographers in the 40s and 50s, the street became a place, a site of activity that garnered just terrific results. And in this series of photographs, we see a group of children playing cards, and you might call her the star of the show, the little blonde girl in the middle. And I think that the serial nature of this group of pictures is not accidental, because in the mid-40s, Ruth Orkin met Morris Engel, who is a filmmaker. They were both associated with PM Magazine, as well as Life, Look, and some of the other photojournalistic enterprises. And they made a film together called Little Fugitive that was actually nominated for an Academy Award. So this sort of crossover between photography and film is something that Orkin was very comfortable with. The Family of Man exhibition was, of course, developed and curated by Edward Steichen. In the 1950s, when this series of pictures was actually printed, the opportunities available to photographers were very, very limited. There was no gallery system. Most of the major museums did not have photography programs. So in 1955, when Steichen conceived of this kind of internationally themed exhibition, the notion of having a picture in this show was just fantastic. And so one of the images in this series was featured both in the Family of Man exhibition and in the accompanying book. Lot 298 is Danny Lyon's portfolio, The Southern Civil Rights Movement, containing 28 signed photographs. Danny Lyon was a student at the University of Chicago. He majored in history. He picked up a camera, and like so many young activists in 1962, he went down south to Alabama, Georgia, Washington, D.C., Mississippi, and photographed the activities around the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, protests, arrests, marches, sit-ins. And this is an extremely powerful group of photographs. In one of the pictures, a young John Lewis, who would go on to become a congressman, is shown with a group of protesters in a very solemn meditation. To fast forward from 1962, 1964 to 2008 and see how the social and political landscape has changed really gives me hope.